Karibu. Karibu in the Swahili language of East Africa means welcome. So, Karibu. Welcome to the world of St. Patrick's Missionary Society. It's based in Kiltegan in County Wicklow, and its priests work mainly in Africa and South America. I am a Kiltegan missionary priest myself. My name is P J McCamphill. I'm from Dunloy in County Antrim. One of our men is Cathal Moriarty, who's from Castletownbere in County Cork. He tells us of a very interesting side of his work in Zambia.
On Saturdays I go to the local prison here in Kitete, where there's about 70 prisoners, many of whom are there on short-term detention. I enjoy ministering to those people. I feel that they are people with needs which need to be looked after in a parish, and very often they are neglected, and even people would kind of shun them and say these people have committed crimes and okay, they have to take what their penance is due to them, kind of thing.
Frankie McAuliffe, who's from Kilrush in County Clare, has begun a very practical project for prisoners on their release from jail.
In the past couple of years I've been involved in the establishment of the Good Samaritan Centre for ex-prisoners in Kabwe here. That whole idea came to mind because of my experience in the prisons, because I found that a number of them, very many of them, when they were released maybe after 10, 15 years, 20 years in prison, that, they went out. Firstly, society disowned them completely because they had been in prison for so long. No one would employ them. Very often their relatives would have abandoned them, their wives would have left them. There's no social security system here in Zambia. So really they were like refugees. And the only way they could survive was by going back into crime. And many, many of them went back into crime, even though I believe in my heart, from those I knew, that many of them didn't want to go back into crime, but they were driven back into crime by society, because society didn't provide the opportunity for them to be, to be reintegrated into society again. So as a result of that, then I got together with a few people in Kabwe and we kind of discussed the situation. So we decided on this centre where they would spend 6 months with emphasis on rehabilitation and on giving them a trade. Then when they're finished, we give them the tools they need and the support they need to set up on their, on their own. And I think, in fact, it's going very well so far. We have 17 there at the moment in training. We only take a maximum of 20 at a time. It's non-denominational. We take them from, all denominations. And I must say the response so far, it has been in operation only for less than a year or so, but the response has been magnificent, really.
Let's hear the story of one man who has benefited from this project.
My name is Christopher Chilawemba. I'm a boarding master at the Good Samaritan Center. I was working under Circuit Holdings, that is way back 1979. When suddenly my wife died, she was beaten by my young brother. So, that being the case, instead I was arrested and given a charge of murder. In 1982, I was sentenced to death. In 1984, the Supreme Court held my case and my sentence of death was quashed. A sentence of 15 years was substituted. Father Frank, he was my prison chaplain. He used to come to preach to me when I was in prison. After being released from prison, I went to Kitwe looking for my relatives. I couldn't find anyone. So until I wrote to Father Frank about my situation there in Kitwe, he called me. I was here at the Good Samaritan Center as the second trainee here. After graduation ceremony, I was offered a job as a boarding master, which I'm doing now. Now my welfare is improving bit by bit. At least I was being looked after, and still I'm being looked after. And so far I'm a qualified carpenter. Excellent. With tools with me given by the Good Samaritan Center.
Overshadowing this side of Frankie's work, unfortunately, is the terrible question, of the death penalty and the execution of prisoners.
We haven't had any executions in Zambia since, I think, November 1989. And we're doing our best to try to lobby towards the elimination of the death penalty here in Zambia. I must say, anyone who has ever experienced an actual execution, couldn't possibly favor the death penalty. Because, some of them, they're in death row maybe for 9-10 years. And then, they're suddenly taken out 3 days' notice, you're going to be executed. Then they inform them on Tuesday, you're being executed on Friday. So obviously from that Tuesday to Friday, I'm with them most of the time,
Frankie has seen some deep Christian faith displayed by men in this awful situation.
I've never seen anything like it. In fact, there was one person being executed, I remember once, and the hood had been put over his head and he was just being led to the execution chamber. And just as he was going into the execution chamber, he said to me, "Goodbye, Father, we'll meet each other in heaven." And he really was convinced of it. Absolutely cool, absolutely calm. It's unbelievable, really.
Working for justice and peace is an increasingly important part of the Church's role. One of our co-workers in Zimbabwe explains.
My name is Clement Piri. I am a legal practitioner by profession, and I reside in Marondera, part of Zimbabwe, towards the east of Zimbabwe. I'm a member of the Our Lady of the Rosary Catholic Church, which is a local parish church. I am in the Justice and Peace Commission, and what we have done is to identify disadvantaged groups where we think we can be most effective in redressing the imbalances that may exist in society. We have identified health issues and social issues insofar as helping the poor and the needy. The biggest problem that we have in the country is access to information. And so we have a committee that is working on pamphlets to simplify procedures to have access to medical facilities. We recently have also been involved in what you call the voter education program. Now, this is a program designed to, again, get the church involved in local issues, get the church involved in educating people about their basic rights and in having a say in a democratic way in the way that local government or central government conducts its own affairs. Because for the past few years we have basically been having a situation whereby a lot of people are unaware why they have to go and vote. They are unaware as to the kind of power that they wield in terms of choosing representations at local level or at central government level to air their views.
We talked earlier about the death penalty. As we all know, unfortunately, AIDS is another type of death penalty. Kieran Murphy, who's from Wexford Town, comes across it almost every day in his work in Zambia.
AIDS, sadly, is a huge problem. Not just it's huge here in the township, but really throughout the whole country. And I mean, it's a difficult ministry because people don't like to admit that they're dying of AIDS or that they have AIDS. We have an AIDS ministry here in the sense that people go about visiting them. Some of our young adults and young people have been trained by a community group in Harare to give home help to those who are dying of AIDS. But I would say that most of our funerals are AIDS-related victims of some sort or another, and it's sad to see so many families, husband, wife, children, all dying slowly from AIDS.
Eugene O'Reilly, who's from Corcahan in County Monaghan, has an AIDS awareness program going, and he trains teams of people to minister to those who are dying of AIDS.
Now, pambuya pache tinene kuti amene ali pa ntchito imeneyi ayenera kukhala ndi mphatso zichoncho kuti akhala ndi mphatso ndiponso pa kuyendera odwala sichili bwino kuti tiyendera mochuluka
sukulu aticha uyembekezera mwana kuti aza kuti akaona ndalama imene amapaseya ndalama zimene azawapasa.
Very closely associated with the question of sickness is the very interesting phenomenon of witchcraft. Enda Kelly from Crossmolina in County Mayo comes across it often enough in his daily work.
Witchcraft is one of the major problems that we meet in our pastoral work. So because of hunger, because of sickness, because of so much death in villages, people in their way of looking at things, unlike us Europeans, we would ask what caused this. But for Africans, their way of looking at things is who caused this. So it's my relative that lives near me in my village that witched or that wished bad luck on my child, so that my child, who was only sick for a short time, died.
Africans are very religious by nature, and they have a very deep sense of God in their ordinary daily lives. So a very exciting challenge is to express their Christian faith in the images and customs of their local culture. Martin Smith from Dublin gives us one example of how this is done during the Good Friday services in Malawi.
We try here to bring in the local customs into the ceremonies to make it more real for the local people. But we also have a little custom where at a funeral, the women prepare little wreaths of flowers, and when the grave has been filled in, they put the wreaths on the altar, on the grave. So today we're going to try and bring that ceremony in, that the women have prepared the wreaths already this morning, and that at the end of the whole ceremony, that they'll put the wreaths on the altar to signify the fact that Jesus has died, but also the hope that he will rise.
It's very important that the Africans' love for song, dance, and colourful clothing be part of their Christian expression and worship.
Ankankunda kwa mbili adawauza kuti
Family and community life is very strong in Africa, so the image of the church as family is encouraged. Priests like Joe O'Connor from Cork use this as a base from which to build up the local Christian community in Zimbabwe.
We have these 17 outstations, but we also have about 70 smaller units which they now call small Christian communities that we visit and serve as often as we can. These are little groups of people who meet together and pray together and work together. And I think that's sort of the way that the church takes root here. It takes root in the family and in the small community, like through the small community to the family and through the small community to a bigger catchment then, like.
Many people have volunteered for various types of work in Africa over the years. Let's talk to two of them.
My name is Breed Marr and I'm from County Laois. This is my second time out in Zambia. I have always had an interest in coming out to see what it's like out in Africa on the missions. So last year I had an opportunity just to go for a short time to the southern province of Zambia. I liked my experience a lot. After the initial shock of all the poverty and just the extremely different world from our first world at home, I settled in very well and I got on very well with the people. So this year I was fortunate enough to have another opportunity to come back for 6 months. So I'm staying here at the Kiltegan Mission, and I'm doing some voluntary work in Chassa Basic School, teaching English and maths. Then at the weekends we have an opportunity to go out with the priests out to what they call the outstations, the outer parts of their parishes, and we get a chance to see what village life is like and just to see the real African scene. I find the weather a bit hot and sticky at times, but apart from that it's a very good experience.
Well, my name is Joe McCamphill. I'm from Clonminch in Offaly. A couple of years ago I decided I'd like to come over here for a certain period of time. So last September I decided I'd give it a go, and I wrote to my college, which is Trinity, and asked them for a year off from my studies. So they said, no problem. I've been out here now for the last 7.5 weeks or so, and it's different, to say the least. The poverty is pretty bad. It took me around 4 weeks or so to get used to the place, but it's not so bad now. I'm teaching in the local school, which is in between the secondary and the primary level. And well, things are pretty bad there. Shortage of staff, bad conditions, no windows, no doors. But the kids are very disciplined, very eager to learn, and very appreciative of what help we're giving them.
Finally, Paddy Hagan, who's from Longford, explains just why St. Patrick's Missionary Society, Kiltegan, continue to send men to Africa and South America.
The purpose of our being in Africa or on the missions is to bring the light of Christ to the people who have not yet heard the gospel. As soon as we arrive at a point where we feel that the local clergy are numerous enough and strong enough to take over parishes and dioceses, then we move on.
So there you are, just some of the very many facets of life of a missionary in Africa today. All I can tell you from my own 23 years experience in Kenya is that I have found it as fulfilling and happy a life as I had ever hoped that it would be. So if you thought that you would like to help us in any way, or indeed if you thought you might like to join us, we would be very happy to hear from you. Like the Africans themselves, we would give you a very big Karibu.